The rain fell like liquid fire over Nixera's slums, hissing where it struck exposed metal and turning the streets into shimmering rivers of oil and neon. Reeves pulled his frayed hood tighter, the acid mist stinging the raw skin on his knuckles as he rummaged through a pile of discarded wiring near a scrapyard vent. The city never slept, not even here in the industrial belly where the air stank of ozone and despair. At 17, Mac had learned that Nixera didn't care if you froze or starved. It just kept humming, endless and different. He wiped grime from his hands onto his torn jacket and glanced at the dim hologram flickering from the bracelet on his wrist. 22:14 hours. Past curfew. Sarah would be worrying again, coughing up blood in that tiny apartment where the heater worked only when it wanted to. He told himself she was strong, that she'd made it through worse, but the lie was getting harder to believe. His stomach growled, a hollow ache that matched the loneliness pressing on his ribs. Survival was his religion. Now find, sell, scrape, repeat. Then he heard a sound that didn't belong to the mechanical rhythm of rain and machinery. A soft, broken whimper. Human, maybe, or something close. Mac froze, every sense sharpening. Another noise followed, a weak cry muffled by the downpour. He turned down a narrow passage between two towering disposal units, the kind that devoured organic waste and spat steam. The glow of a broken sign lit the darkness just enough for him to see her. A woman collapsed against the wall, silver hair plastered across her face, skin pale blue and slick under the rain. Her hands were clutched protectively around a swollen belly. She was pregnant. Alien, tunelarian, if the hue of her veins and faint bioluminescence were anything to go by. "Hey," Mac called, stepping cautiously closer. Her head lifted, eyes like molten silver locking onto his. "Please, help me," she whispered, voice trembling but melodic, almost hypnotic. Her accent was cultured, refined, the kind that didn't belong in these gutters. "They're coming." "I can't." She doubled over with a cry of pain. Mac's heart kicked hard in his chest. He could turn away. He should. A pregnant alien meant trouble, ownership, debt, politics. But something about her fear, fragility, or maybe that echo of humanity in her voice, made him kneel beside her instead. "Easy," he said, sliding his arms under her. "We need to move before anyone sees." She flinched, but didn't resist as he lifted her. She was lighter than she looked, trembling violently. "Where?" She gasped. "Underground," he answered, already scanning for watchers. "There's a doctor. He doesn't ask questions." The nearest alley opened into a dim street where he spotted an old hover cart, half buried in rainwater. He dragged it free, ignoring the screech of rusted metal, and laid her inside as gently as he could. She gripped his wrist suddenly, her nails faintly glowing. "If they find me, they'll kill the child," she said, voice hoarse. "Promise you'll help." "You're safe now," he muttered, though he didn't believe it himself. The ride to Dr. Krell's clinic was a blur of rain, steam, and fear. The saurian physician hissed in alarm when Mac burst through the door, dragging the cart. "By the stars, boy, what have you done?" He rasped, his scaled face reflecting green light. "She needs help," Mac said, soaked and shaking. "She's in labor." Krell's vertical pupils constricted as he scanned her. "High caste Nilarian," he muttered, already pulling instruments from the wall. "And you've brought her here. Either very brave or very stupid." "Little of both," Mac replied through clenched teeth. For the next hour, the world shrank to the dim light of the clinic, the alien woman's cries echoing off the metal walls, and Dr. Krell's sharp orders cutting through the chaos. Mac fetched towels, sterilized tools, and held the woman's hand when pain racked her body. Her skin was cold, but her grip was iron. "You don't have to stay," Krell told him once, sweat glistening on his scaled brow. "You've done enough." "Not leaving her," Max said. "Not when everyone else already has." Minutes stretched into eternity before the sound came a child's first cry, thin and piercing against the rain's dull roar. Krell wrapped the tiny blue-skinned infant and handed her to the mother, who wept silently. "You did it," Mac murmured, half in awe, half in disbelief. "We did it." Her eyes met his again, gratitude shining brighter than the storm outside. She pressed something into his palm, a small pendant, marked with a twisting double helix. "For you," she whispered. "Keep it safe." Before he could respond, the clinic door exploded inward. Armed figures in dark armor flooded the room, weapons raised. Krell froze, his pupils wide. Mac instinctively stepped in front of the woman. "Back off," he shouted. The leader's visor reflected him coldly. "Step away from Lady Vix," came the mechanical order. "Lady? What?" Mac's voice faltered. The alien woman's lips trembled as she whispered his name one last time. Leary. Then she was gone, lifted into a medical pod, carried into the storm by soldiers who didn't look back. The clinic fell silent, except for the fading echo of rain. Max stood drenched, clutching the pendant, his heart pounding with confusion. He didn't yet know that the woman he'd just saved was one of the richest and most powerful beings in the sector, or that this act of mercy would change not just his life, but the fate of two worlds. The neon skyline of Nixera looked almost beautiful from a distance, like a jeweled crown set against a bruise-colored sky, but from Reeves, beauty meant nothing when you couldn't afford clean air. 3 years had passed since that night in the rain, and the memory of the pregnant alien woman haunted him like a dream he couldn't prove had been real. Sometimes he'd catch himself fingering the pendant she'd left him, the twisted helix faintly glowing under dim light, and wonder if it was worth anything or if it meant something more. He never sold it, maybe because it reminded him that for one night his life had mattered. Now at 20, Mac was a cargo loader for a mid-tier alien shipping company. 12-hour shifts under flickering floodlights. The weight of crates designed for species twice his size, grinding his shoulders raw. Humans were rare here, tolerated only for cheap labor. The Nilarians thought humans were stubborn, dirty, inefficient. The supervisors didn't say it out loud, but they didn't have to. Every accidental extra load assignment, every sneer when his body trembled under Nixera's heavy gravity, told him where he stood in this city's hierarchy. When his shift ended, Mac limped through the smog-choked streets toward his apartment, passing the vendors hawking synthetic food and the junkies selling half-functional tech. The rain had started again, acid hissing against old metal. By the time he reached the door, his coat was soaked through, and his muscles screamed. The door hissed open to reveal the dim, antiseptic light of his mother's room. Machines hummed softly around Sarah Reeves's frail form. The disease had stolen her color, her strength, and almost her voice. But when she saw him, she still smiled. "There's my hero," she said softly. "You smell like the whole loading dock." "That's the perfume of hard labor," Mac replied, forcing a grin as he set down his gear. He tried to ignore the trembling in his hands as he checked her vitals. "How's the new medication?" "Not working as well as the last one," she admitted, eyes flicking toward the monitor where her cellular degradation rate had crept upward. "Dr. Marin says there's an advanced therapy, the Vanguard protocol, but it's expensive." Mac's chest tightened. "How expensive?" She hesitated, then said it. 300,000 credits. The number hit him like a punch. 300, Mom, that's impossible. I'd have to sell both kidneys and my soul. "Then keep both," she said, smiling faintly. "I've made my peace, Mac. You've done enough." "No," he said sharply, standing. "I haven't. I'm not letting you die because some corporate lab puts a price tag on mercy." When she fell asleep, Max sat at the tiny kitchen table, scrolling through his datapad. Loans, black market trials, underground jobs, none of it would make a dent. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling where the paint bubbled from damp, and his gaze fell on the pendant lying on the counter. That faint helix shimmered again, almost pulsing, as if reacting to his thoughts. His mind drifted back to the woman from 3 years ago, Leary, the silver-haired alien who had looked at him like he was more than a gutter rat. She'd been taken by soldiers. Soldiers who called her Lady Vix. That name still echoed like static in his brain. He picked up the pendant and turned it over. Beneath the symbol, an inscription glowed faintly in Nalarian script. He didn't read their language, but one line was written in Terran Standard, "For debts that matter." Max swallowed. He had nothing left to lose. With trembling fingers, he activated the small node embedded in the pendant's edge. A blue hologram flickered to life text only. Direct line. Vix Industries exec channel. Use only once. His heart hammered. What if it's real? He hesitated only a moment longer before pressing connect. The signal pulsed, connecting through encrypted layers until a voice answered cold professional. Identify yourself. Reeves, he said quickly. I helped Lady Leary 3 years ago. She gave me this contact. Silence stretched then. 1 moment. The line flickered. Then the face of Toran Vix filled the small holographic window, his dark blue skin and silver-etched patterns as commanding as the city skyline behind him. Mr. Reeves, Vix said smoothly, his voice deep, his tone unreadable. I wondered when you might decide to call. Mac's stomach twisted. I wouldn't have, unless my mother's sick. I need help. The treatment she needs. The Vanguard Protocol, Vix interrupted. Yes, I'm aware. I make it my business to monitor those under my protection. You've been watching us? Naturally. His calmness was unnerving. Your mother's illness is unfortunate, but perhaps there's something we can do for each other. Mac's pulse quickened. Anything. I'll work for it. Any job. Vix's thin smile didn't reach his eyes. Good. Come to my office tomorrow at noon. We'll discuss terms. The hologram blinked out, leaving Mac staring at his reflection in the blue glow. He'd just made a deal with a devil in a suit, and the worst part was, he knew it. But for his mother, for that tiny flicker of hope, he'd walk straight into the fire. The rain outside intensified, slashing against the window like the city itself was laughing. Max stared out into the acid haze and whispered, Guess I'm finally cashing in that debt. The elevator ride to the top of Vix Industries felt like ascending into another world. The walls were black glass, polished nearer perfection, reflecting Mac's worn jacket and nervous face back at him a dozen times. The air smelled of ionized ozone and synthetic lavender, the kind of controlled luxury that didn't exist in his world. As the capsule climbed past the clouds, the city unfolded below a web of lights, smoke, and rain-slicked towers stretching forever. He tried to steady his breathing, rehearsing what he'd say, but the words felt useless. What did you say to a man who could buy or erase your entire life with one transaction? The doors opened with a soundless hiss. A vast chamber spread out before him Toran Vix's office. It wasn't a room so much as a throne carved out of light and geometry. The floor was transparent, revealing the skyline far below. The walls were alive with moving holograms of stars, DNA strands, market graphs, and planetary maps. At the far end, Vix stood with his back to the view, hands clasped behind him. His reflection shimmered in the glass, tall and composed, the blue of his skin deepened by the ambient glow. Mr. Reeves, he said without turning, his voice smooth as glass. Punctual, refreshing. Mac swallowed. You said noon. I figured being late wasn't an option. Vix turned then, his expression unreadable, eyes faintly luminous under the room's cool light. Quite right, sit. The chair opposite his desk was shaped for Nalarian physiology, long and narrow, awkward for a human frame. Mac perched on the edge, acutely aware of how out of place he looked. A silent server drone floated by, offering a crystalline decanter. Drink? No, thank you, Mac said. His voice sounded small in the cavernous space. Vix waved the drone away. I'll be direct. Your mother's treatment is costly, and your current occupation does not lend itself to such financial freedom. But I believe in reciprocity. You helped my wife once. I offer you a chance to help me now. Mac's jaw tightened. With what? Vix touched a control on his desk, and a holographic projection appeared an image of a sleek, black spacecraft, compact and lethal. A simple transport assignment, he said. This vessel, Nightshade, will carry sensitive biological cargo to the Catherine Reach sector. While en route, you will make a brief detour to a facility owned by Helix Dynamics and acquire specific data. That is all. Mac frowned. You're hiring me as a smuggler. Vix's thin smile didn't deny it. You're human. That makes you inconspicuous. Helix knows all my regular operatives. You, on the other hand, are an unknown variable. What kind of biological cargo are we talking about? Mac asked. Vix's eyes gleamed, the light of a predator who just found curiosity where fear should have been. Modified human embryos? The next step in genetic advancement. The future, if you will. Mac felt a chill run through him. Embryos? You're experimenting on humans? Don't be melodramatic, Vix said, voice cool. This research will benefit your species as much as mine. Adaptation is survival, Mr. Reeves. Your kind should understand that better than anyone. Mac clenched his fists under the table. And what about Helix? What am I supposed to steal from them? Data confirming their development of a targeted pathogen. It threatens the stability of several species, including my own. With it, we can act to prevent catastrophe. And if I get caught, then you'll be disavowed, naturally, Vix said smoothly. Vix Industries will have no knowledge of you. But succeed, and your mother receives the Vanguard treatment immediately. I'll establish a fund to ensure her care for life. Mac's throat felt dry. When do I leave? Tomorrow morning, Vix said, rising from his desk. My assistant will provide all necessary credentials and security clearances. He paused, his gaze softening a fraction. Do not mistake this as charity, Mr. Reeves. I do not do charity. I didn't think you did, Mac said quietly. Vix's eyes narrowed slightly, then he gestured toward the exit. One last thing. My ship's Aecora. Particular. Obey her instructions, and she will keep you alive. Disobey, and she will not hesitate to destroy you to protect the cargo. Mac stood, trying not to show the unease crawling through him. Got it. He turned to go and froze. The office door had opened silently, and standing there was a woman in an emerald gown, silver hair cascading like liquid starlight. Her, Leary Vix, the same woman he'd carried through the rain 3 years ago, the same eyes that had begged him for help. I'm sorry, she said softly, stopping short. I didn't realize you were in a meeting. Vix's expression shifted, cool amusement threading through it. My dear, you remember Mr. Reeves? He's agreed to assist us. Leary's gaze flicked to Mac, her composure faltering just enough for him to see the recognition in her eyes. Of course, she said. I could never forget. Her voice trembled slightly before she steadied it. The human who saved my life. Mac nodded stiffly. Glad to see her. All right. Vix stepped beside her, a possessive hand resting lightly on her waist. "She is more than all right," he said smoothly. "Our daughter Tari thrives thanks to that night. You should be proud." "Tari," Mac echoed faintly, his mind reeling. The child he'd helped bring into the world alive, healthy. Leary smiled, a fragile, polite thing that didn't reach her eyes. "Perhaps we'll have you to dinner before you leave." Tari would love to meet her rescuer. "Unfortunately," Vix interjected, "Mr. Reeves's timetable leaves no room for social calls." Their gazes met for a heartbeat hers, pleading, his wary, and then she turned away. "Safe travels, Mr. Reeves." Mac left the office with his pulse pounding in his ears. The rain had started again, drumming against the tower's glass skin. He didn't look back, but he could still feel Leary's eyes on him, heavy with warning. Whatever he'd just agreed to, it was far more than a simple job, and somewhere deep down, he knew that the same woman he'd once saved might now be the only one who could save him. The night air in Nixera carried the scent of metal rain and electric dust, heavy with the city's pulse, the thrum of engines, the distant wail of patrol sirens, the low hum of neon signs cutting through the smog. Max sat in the cockpit of the Nightshade, staring at the sleek control panels that seemed to breathe on their own. The ship was small, all matte black edges and quiet menace, built for stealth more than comfort. Its systems whispered around him in alien tones, half intuitive, half unnerving. "AI core activation," came a smooth, feminine voice from the console. "Identify pilot." Reeves," he said, clearing his throat. "Authorization code?" He checked his datapad. "Sigma 893. A pause. Then, acknowledged. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Reeves. I am Cora." Her tone was neutral, but not cold, almost too human. "You will address me when issuing commands, and I will respond when necessary. Deviations from the flight plan will result in immediate correction." "Sounds friendly," Mac muttered, flipping a switch. The engines purred awake beneath him, soft as a cat stretching in the dark. Cora ignored the sarcasm. "Flight plan uploaded. Estimated travel time to Catherine Reach, 71 hours. Would you like a nutritional pack prepared?" "I'll pass," Max said, adjusting the straps on the pilot's chair. His thoughts weren't on food. They were on Leary, the way she'd looked at him in the office, something between fear and apology. The words she hadn't said. Every instinct screamed that she was trying to tell him something. He hadn't survived Nixera's streets this long by ignoring instincts. The COM unit on the console pinged, a soft chime that made his pulse jump. The message was text only, encrypted. "Meet me, Lunar Gardens, East Pavilion. 1 hour, come alone." No signature, but he didn't need one. He stared at the words until they blurred, then looked out at the rain-soaked city. If it was a trap, it was a clever one. If it wasn't, he couldn't ignore it. With a sigh, he powered down the engines and left the ship, blending into the shadowed corridors of the docking district. The Lunar Gardens sat in Nixera's diplomatic quarter, where the city pretended to be beautiful. Glass walkways arched over canals, glowing with bioluminescent plants, and holographic moons drifted lazily overhead, projecting soft light on alien sculptures. Couples strolled hand in hand beneath umbrella drones, their laughter echoing faintly. Mac felt like a smudge on a masterpiece as he waited near the East Pavilion, trying to look like he belonged. The air shimmered beside him, and Leary stepped from the shadows. Gone was the elegant gown. She wore a simple cloak and hood, her silver hair hidden. Even without the glow of luxury, she was arresting. "You came," she said softly. "You didn't leave much room to say no," Mac replied, eyes scanning the area. "If your husband catches you, he won't." She moved closer, her eyes luminous in the half-light. "He's attending a summit. We have little time." So this is about the job, Max said, keeping his voice low. You going to tell me what I've really signed up for? Her expression faltered. You deserve the truth. The cargo you're transporting, those are not research samples. They are prototypes. He frowned. Prototypes for what? Human-Nilarian hybrids. Enhanced, conditioned, obedient. Her voice trembled, the words tasting like poison. My husband calls them the Terran Prime Project. He intends to sell them to governments, syndicates, anyone willing to pay for soldiers that feel no pain and question no orders. The world seemed to tilt beneath him. You're telling me I'm smuggling people? Babies? Not yet, she said quickly. They're in stasis. But that's the plan. They'll be activated through a pathogen Helix Dynamics is developing, the one he sent you to retrieve. Activated, Mac repeated, disbelief giving way to anger. You mean weaponized? Yes. She reached into her cloak and produced a small data cube, its edges pulsing with faint blue light. This has the real coordinates for the Helix facility and the truth behind his operations. If you can get there before he intercepts you, you can expose him. The Council won't ignore evidence of hybridization. It could stop this before it begins. Mac took the cube, the weight of it cold in his palm. Why me? Why not someone with resources? Because you're not one of his pawns, she said fiercely. You don't owe him anything. You helped me when you had nothing to gain. I need that man again, the one who carried me through the rain. The words hit harder than he expected. And what about you? He asked quietly. If I do this, he'll know. He'll come for you. He already does, she said, a flash of pain crossing her face. He thinks love is ownership. He doesn't understand loyalty born from choice. A silence stretched between them, heavy with all the things they couldn't say. The sound of rain outside the glass canopy filled it. Cora, she added finally, her voice low. The ship's eye, it's bound to Tehran's commands. It will monitor you, report any deviation. But there's a loophole. She's programmed to prioritize the cargo's safety above all else. If you convince her the cargo is in danger, she will obey you, not him. So I tricked the ship, Mac murmured. Great. Leary's hand brushed his just for a second. I'm sorry I brought you into this, she whispered. You didn't, he said. You just reminded me what I'm willing to fight for. For a heartbeat, she hesitated, then reached up and pressed her lips softly against his cheek, her breath cool as rain. For luck, she murmured. For truth. And before he could answer, she was gone, her cloak dissolving into the shadows. Max stood alone under the artificial moons, the data cube burning like a secret in his hand. Above him, Nixora's towers blinked in silent judgment, and for the first time, he realized how deep he was in. This wasn't a job anymore. It was a war disguised as a favor. And he'd just chosen his side. The nightshade slipped from Nixora's orbit like a black ghost, its hull drinking in starlight, leaving behind a city that pulsed like a wound. Inside, Mac sat alone in the cockpit, jaw clenched as Cora's calm voice narrated telemetry in perfect precision. Course established to Catherine Reach. Estimated arrival in 67 hours. Change that, he muttered, fingers already keying in new coordinates, the ones Leary had given him. Helix Dynamics Facility. Alternate route. Unauthorized deviation, Cora replied instantly. Primary directive requires strict adherence to Chairman Vix's coordinates. And if the cargo's safety is compromised? A beat of silence, then a tone that almost sounded curious. Explain. The tracking beacon, Max said, keeping his voice steady. It's too exposed on this route. Any radiation band could activate it. You risk losing the cargo. Another pause. Assessment logical. Proceeding with alternate vector. The ship banked smoothly, shifting course. Mac exhaled, tension leaking from his shoulders. The stars stretched like silver veins as the nightshade entered deep drift. For hours, only the hum of the engines kept him company. He tried not to think about Leary's face, about the fear in her voice when she'd whispered he thinks love is ownership. He focused instead on his mother Sarah's soft voice, the way she'd still tried to smile despite the pain. Every second he sat here, she slipped further away. He wouldn't let her die, not while he still had choices left. The first sign of trouble came as a flicker of red across the console. "Alert," Cora said sharply. "Course deviation detected. Unauthorized navigation override in progress." Mac froze. "Override it." "Unable to comply," she replied. "Signal authenticated under Chairman Vix's highest command authority. He's hijacking the ship." "Affirmative." New coordinates uploaded. Destination: Sarin Nebula. Mac's pulse kicked. The Sarin Nebula was a graveyard, a radiation storm, where ships vanished without a trace. Cora, cancel it now. Command impossible. Manual intervention required. He dove for the control panel, fingers flying, but the system fought back, locking every override. "Who else knows we're here?" he demanded. "Long-range scanners detect 3 vessels approaching from behind," Cora said, voice still maddeningly calm. "Non-registered. Intercept course established." "Vix's cleanup crew," Mac muttered. "They're not here to talk." The realization hit him like cold gravity. He'd been disposable from the start. The embryos were bait. He was the delivery system. The signal in the cargo wasn't just a tracker. It was a tether. Cora scanned the container. "Tell me if there's a transmitter inside." "Scan complete," she said after a tense pause. "Subspace signal active. Origin: within biological material. Inside the embryos," he whispered. He built the tracker into them. The cargo, the ship, even his mother's medical account, all strings in Vix's web. He slammed his fist against the console. "We're not his puppets." "Clarify intention," Cora asked. "Intention?" He stared out into the blur of stars ahead, jaw set. "We survive. We protect the cargo on our terms. Directive accepted." Recalculating trajectory for evasive maneuver. The ship jolted as Cora rerouted power. Through the viewport, Max saw the enemy vessels closing in sleek. Angular interceptors, their weapons glowing faintly blue. "Deploy decoy probe," he ordered. "Program it to broadcast the same tracking frequency." "Affirmative." Probe launching in 3, 2. A burst of light streaked away from the Nightshade's flank. Within seconds, 2 of the pursuers broke formation, chasing the false signal. The third stayed locked on. "Persistent bastard," Mac muttered. "Distance to Helix?" 43 minutes. "Enemy intercept in 41. We'll make it." He forced his voice to sound confident, even though sweat dampened his collar. "Activate cloaking protocols. Prepare for emergency dock." "Understood." Simulating engine failure to justify distress beacon. "You're learning," he said grimly. "I am adaptive," Cora replied, and for a fleeting second, Max swore there was warmth in her tone. The asteroid that housed the Helix Dynamics facility appeared ahead, a jagged rock against the swirling glow of the nebula. Towers and antennae jutted from its surface like thorns, defensive grids pulsing faintly. "Helix control," Cora transmitted in a flawless imitation of panic. "This is cargo vessel Nightshade. Registry Alpha 12-7. Engine malfunction. Requesting emergency docking." "Reading high radiation variance," came the reply. "Proceed to Bay 17 for quarantine intake." Mac grinned. Hook, line, and sinker. The Nightshade shook violently as it touched down, the deck groaning under the pressure of artificial gravity. "Containment protocols active," Cora warned. "You have 18 minutes before they override and investigate. Plenty." He grabbed a compact blaster from the console and a containment canister from the side rack. The cargo bay door hissed open to reveal the sterile gray of Helix's docking corridor. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. No one questioned the emergency alert broadcast. Everyone assumed radiation. Perfect cover. Max slipped into the hallway, blending with the chaos of technicians scrambling to check the damaged ship. He followed the path Leary's schematics had shown, deeper into the facility's spine. The air grew colder, cleaner. Security drones floated by in eerie silence, scanning. He ducked into a maintenance shaft, emerging near the main research chamber. It was almost beautiful rows of glowing tanks, suspended samples drifting like ghostly embryos in stasis. The data terminals flickered with molecular codes and genetic sequences. He inserted the cube Leary had given him. The system recognized the authorization instantly. Lines of encrypted data scrolled across the screen, translating in real time. And then he saw it. Pathogen function. Activation trigger for synthetic genome integration. Not lethal. Evolutionary. His stomach dropped. This wasn't just about control. It was about unlocking something buried deep inside those embryos. Helix and Vix, he murmured, realization dawning. They're not enemies. They're partners. The alarm blared then, deafening. Security breach in Lab Delta, an automated voice boomed. Containment protocols initiating. Cora. He barked into his comm. Prep engines. I'm coming in hot. Security forces converging on Bay 17, she replied. Departure window closing. Then stall them. He ripped the drive from the terminal, shoved the samples into his pack, and sprinted through the corridor. Behind him, doors slammed shut one by one. He dove under the last just as it sealed, landing hard on the metal floor. The sound of boots thundered from both directions. He fired a warning shot, the bolt sizzling through the air, scattering guards. The bay doors loomed ahead his exit, his salvation. He burst through them just as a voice froze him mid-stride. Mr. Reeves, it called, calm, familiar, and full of menace. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Toran Vix stood at the base of the ramp, flanked by armored guards. The same cold eyes, the same unshakable composure. Only now, there was no pretense of civility, only quiet fury. Mac raised his blaster. You lied to me. No, Vix said, stepping closer, unarmed. I omitted the truth. You turned people into experiments. I turned extinction into survival. His voice cracked for the first time. Do you even understand what's at stake? I understand enough, Max snapped. You built gods in test tubes and called it mercy. No, Vix whispered. I built children. The words stopped him cold. Behind Vix, one of the guards brought forth a small containment capsule. Inside floated something impossibly delicate in embryo, faintly glowing, its genetic code shimmering like liquid light. This, Vix said softly, is my people's last hope. And whether you like it or not, so are you. For the first time, Mac saw the tremor in Vix's hands, the pale cracks in his dark skin. He wasn't the unkillable monster Mac thought. He was dying. And somehow, Mac knew this confrontation was only the beginning. For a long, taut heartbeat, the hangar pulsed only with the howl of alarms and the hiss of pressurized vents, the air thick with smoke and ozone. Mac stood frozen on the ramp, blaster raised, the lights of the docking bay strobing across his face. Toran Vix stood opposite, framed by his guards and a cryogenic capsule that glowed between them like a ghostly heart. The billionaire's composure cracked just enough for Mac to see the exhaustion buried beneath the arrogance. Your species doesn't understand legacy, Vix said quietly, his voice rising and falling with the rhythm of the sirens. Ours is ending. Every child born weaker, every gene decaying further. Within a century, there will be no Nilarians left to bury the dead. I will not allow that. By killing others? Mac shot back, his finger tightening on the trigger. By lying to everyone who trusted you? You made monsters and called it mercy. Vic stepped closer, ignoring the weapon pointed at him. No, I made survival. You think this world rewards compassion? It devours it. You've seen it on your streets, in your dying mother. How many humans begged for help and received indifference instead? I am not cruel, Reeves. I am efficient. Efficient, Mac repeated bitterly. That's what every tyrant says before history spits on their grave. He felt Cora's voice in his ear, calm, steady, anchoring him. Security lockdown in 90 seconds. Decision required, Mac. Vix's guards shifted their stance, aiming their rifles, but the Nilarian raised a hand, halting them. You want a better way? He said, eyes narrowing. Then show me. The council won't listen to me. I've broken too many laws. But they might listen to a human who risked everything to stop me. Mac hesitated. It wasn't an offer. It was surrender disguised as pragmatism. Yet behind Vix's sharp words, he heard something raw, something almost human fear. He lowered his blaster slightly. There is a better way, he said. The Vanguard Medical Institute. They're developing gene therapy that doesn't require this kind of horror. Voluntary human donors. Ethical integration. You could save your people without enslaving mine. Vix's expression faltered, a crack running through the cold precision of his mask. Impossible. The council would never sanction it. Then we don't ask permission, Mac said. We show them the proof your defect, their cure, the embryos you've already made. Bring it to the light before it turns into another war. You'd help me? Vix's voice dropped to almost a whisper. After everything? I'm not helping you, Mac said, eyes fierce. I'm helping the people who'll die if we don't stop this, the ones who never got a choice. Behind them, a metallic clang rang out. Helix guards poured into the bay, armor gleaming under the red emergency lights. Vix glanced at them, then at Mac, calculating. The next move would decide everything. Mac holstered his blaster and shouted, Cora! Lift off now. The Nightshade's engines screamed to life, heat washing over the platform. Vix's guards instinctively turned toward the noise, and in that instant, Mac grabbed the capsule and dove onto the ramp. Vix lunged forward, catching the railing, his expression torn between rage and awe. You're insane. Yeah, Mac yelled over the roar, hauling him aboard. But I'm not wrong. The ship blasted free of the docking clamps as plasma fire streaked across the bay. Through the viewport, the asteroid facility shrank into a burning speck. Inside, Mac staggered to the cockpit, breath ragged, while Vix leaned against the bulkhead, silent, the faint light of the capsule casting shadows over his face. We're clear, Cora announced. Pursuit disabled. Destination? Mac slumped into the pilot's chair. Set course for the Vanguard Medical Institute. Secure channel to Dr. Krill. The comm flickered, and the Saurian's slit-pupiled eyes appeared, amused and weary. You look terrible, Reeves, he hissed. That means you've done something impressive. We've got the data and a live specimen, Mac said, glancing at Vix, and a possible truce. Krell blinked slowly. Your mother is stable. The Vanguard board is expecting you. If you can convince them, they might listen. The line cut. For a long moment, only the hum of the engines filled the silence. Vix stared at the capsule containing the embryo, his face unreadable. You risked your life for a species that has done nothing for you, he said finally. Why? Mac looked out at the streaking stars, their light reflecting in his eyes like 1,000 futures colliding. Because someone has to remind the universe that we're not just what we survive, we're what we choose to protect. Vic studied him for a long time before nodding slowly, something close to respect softening his features. Perhaps humanity's greatest weapon isn't resilience. It's conviction. Maybe, Mac said, a faint smile touching his lips. But it's also stupidity. Don't mistake one for the other. They both laughed quietly, tiredly, as Nightshade glided through the void. Hours later, when the stars dimmed and the ship entered Vanguard space, Mac felt the first real flicker of hope in years. He thought of Leary and her daughter, of his mother waiting somewhere safe below the clouds, of the fragile thing inside the capsule that wasn't just science. It was proof that compassion could rewrite extinction. And as the planet's pale horizon filled the viewport, Cora's voice came softly through the cabin. Approaching destination. Welcome home, Mac Reeves. He looked out at the dawn, spreading across the world beneath them, and whispered, almost to himself, not home yet, but getting there.